Hermione is often depicted as a bookworm in the Harry Potter story who liked to show off non-stop. This might have been a way for her to prove to the world that she, as a Muggle-born, could be just as outstanding, if not better. Perhaps that's why she always worked incredibly hard to prove her abilities. On the other hand, Ron's insecurity about not being special enough, for instance, not having enough wealth, not being as famous as Harry, led to his own estrangement from Hermione and Harry from time to time.
I saw you two the other night.
Ron, that's nothing. Ron!
Harry, despite being just as talented and brave, can be very impulsive and act without a proper plan. Without the help of Hermione and Ron, he could have been killed multiple times, and the defeat of Voldemort could never have been achieved.
If he's only hurting Sirius because he's trying to get to you.
Through all this, we can see that these characters were developed based upon one fundamental truth about us, that is, none of us is perfect and we are all deeply flawed. This also applies to one of the greatest characters in the story, Albus Dumbledore.
Nice.
Albus Dumbledore is one of the most memorable characters in the Harry Potter universe. He's often depicted as one of the greatest wizards of all time, Harry's mentor and a wise man. And I'm going to go deep into the history of Dumbledore, covering his childhood, his controversial lover, Gellert Grindelwald, his brief shift towards the dark side, and eventually the legacy he left behind. Dumbledore was born in the summer of 1881 into a wizarding family as a half-blood wizard. He's the eldest child in his family, followed by his brother Aberforth and his sister Ariana. The early years of Dumbledore's life were marked by tragedy when his sister Ariana was attacked by a group of Muggle boys who saw her performing magic and got frightened by what they saw. After the attack, Dumbledore's sister became mentally and emotionally scarred, and her magical powers were severely altered, manifesting themselves only on rare occasions, but in a destructive way. According to the story, this condition is known as being an obscurial, a young witch or wizard who has developed a dark, parasitical magical force being known as an obscurus as a result of their magic being suppressed through psychological or physical abuse. Dumbledore's father was heartbroken by the attack and sought his own form of justice. He found the Muggle boys who had attacked Ariana and retaliated. As a result, he was imprisoned in Azkaban, where he later died. Dumbledore's father chose imprisonment over explaining why he had attacked the Muggle boys in the first place, as explaining would have led to Ariana's being taken away to St. Mungo's Hospital, the Wizarding Hospital, possibly forever. This is because there is a law in the wizarding world to safeguard the wizarding community from Muggles by hiding its presence from the world at large. Ariana's inability to control her magical power could mean exposing the wizarding world to the Muggle world to a great extent. After the retaliation and the subsequent imprisonment of Dumbledore's father in Azkaban, Dumbledore's mother had to relocate the entire family to avoid the accusing eyes of the local community. It was then that they moved to Godric's Hollow, where Harry's parents got murdered by Voldemort, and Godric's Hollow, like their old home, was a part-wizarding village. Fearing that Ariana would be confined to St. Mungo's Hospital forever, Dumbledore's mother decided to isolate the entire family from their neighbors except for Bathilda Bagshot, a family friend of theirs, to maintain their privacy. Dumbledore also learned not to mention his father or his sister in public. This was briefly mentioned in Deathly Hallows when Dumbledore said, You know the secret of my sister's ill health, what those muggles did, what she became. You know how my poor father sought revenge and paid the price, died in Azkaban. You know how my mother gave up her own life to care for Ariana. Despite the tragedy that struck Dumbledore's family, Dumbledore showed great talent and brightness in his wisdom development. He started attending Hogwarts in 1892 and was sorted into Gryffindor. His first year wasn't easy as there was much talking about his father's crime, so Dumbledore was mistakenly seen as a Muggle hater. Although Dumbledore never really shared the sentiment of anti-Muggle prejudice, he did develop some form of prejudice against Muggles under the influence of his then lover, Gellert Grindelwald. However, he soon corrected his views, something we will discuss in more depth later in this video. On his first day at Hogwarts, Dumbledore befriended Alpheus Doge, who was suffering from the aftermath of dragon pox and had greenish skin and pockmarks, which discouraged most people from approaching him. Dumbledore, however, demonstrated his uncommon kindness and willingness to look past the surface and find inner beauty in people. Dumbledore became a prefect in his 5th year and was made a head boy in his 7th year. He was the single most outstanding student in the school at the time, and over the course of his school career, Dumbledore won many awards and prizes and was considered by some to be the most brilliant student to have ever attended Hogwarts. Dumbledore also made some notable connections during his Hogwarts years, like Nicholas Flamel, the maker of the Philosopher's Stone, and Bathilda Bagshot, a family friend of his, who was eventually murdered and animated by Voldemort to contain his snake in the Deathly Hallows. The exceptional talent and greatness in Dumbledore's magical ability were evidenced in Alpheus Doge's remark. By the end of his first year, he would never again be known as the son of a Muggle hater, but as nothing more or less than the most brilliant student ever seen at school. After graduating from Hogwarts in 1899, Dumbledore planned to take the traditional Grand Tour of the world with his friend Doge. A Grand Tour was a trip around the world undertaken by many graduates of Hogwarts, similar to the gap year we have seen among young people today. However, a tragedy occurred on the evening of their departure when his mother was accidentally killed by a magical explosion caused by none other than his own sister Ariana due to her inability to control her magic. Because of this, Dumbledore had to cancel his original plan and assume the responsibility of acting as his sister's guardian. All of a sudden, Dumbledore became the head of his broken family, a role he resented but had no choice but to take on. Dumbledore felt bitter about his situation, feeling trapped and wasted. Despite this, he still refused to let his brother Aberforth quit school to look after Ariana. He insisted him completing his education before taking on the responsibility of caring for their sister. All this misery finally changed one day when a foreigner arrived at Godric's Hollow, the second most famous dark wizard we have known, Gellert Grindelwald. Gellert Grindelwald arrived at Godric's Hollow in 1899, the year Dumbledore graduated from Hogwarts, and soon after the tragic event that killed Dumbledore's mother. He arrived there to hope to get more information about the Deathly Hallows, as Ignotus Peverell, who was said to have been the first owner of the invisibility cloak, had been laid to rest there. Grindelwald was introduced to Dumbledore by his great-aunt and a family friend of Dumbledore's, Bathilda Bagshot. Grindelwald was around the same age as Dumbledore and just as brilliant, so they quickly struck up a close friendship and remained very close for the rest of the summer during Grindelwald's stay in Godric's Hollow. The two of them spent days together, sharing ideas, talking, and building their relationship. They learned a lot about each other and shared the same inspirations and goals for their lives. Grindelwald revealed his ambition for wizarding domination and his search for the fabled Deathly Hallows to achieve invincibility in order to accomplish this mission.
Together, they make one Master of Death.
Dumbledore quickly became fascinated by Grindelwald's idea, likely because his affection for him or the opportunity to present his own brilliance to escape his current misery. Moreover, Dumbledore may have been motivated by the hope to protect his family. It makes sense that Dumbledore wanted the power to protect his loved one against any form of cruelty and xenophobia after what he had suffered from the tragedy. Besides, if Dumbledore could successfully possess the Resurrection Stone, one of the Deathly Hallows, he might be able to revive his parents and relieve himself of the familial obligations. But we later realized in the Deathly Hallows that the Resurrection Stone didn't really revive the dead. Instead, it brought back the spirits of the deceased, which appeared much like echoes of the dead. Over the next 2 months, their friendship became romantic, with Dumbledore ignoring any concerns he had about Grindelwald's dark intentions by convincing himself that the revolution they were planning together was truly for the greater good, a phrase coined by Dumbledore himself at that time, and that any harm caused would be repaid 1,000-fold after its conclusion. Decades later, when Dumbledore talked about his relationship with Grindelwald, he said, "Did I know in my heart of hearts what Gellert Grindelwald was? I think I did, but I closed my eyes." Years later, when Dumbledore reunited with Grindelwald, Dumbledore claimed that he had only followed him into this dangerous scheme because he was in love.
"What you're doing is madness. It's what we said we would do. Well, I was young. I was committed to me, to us. No, I went along because I was in love with you."
One night, Dumbledore and Grindelwald walked to a barn where they went inside to create a blood pact, which forms a bond of love that can only be broken if their spells met without intent to attack one another. Around the same time, Dumbledore's brother Aberforth also fell in love with a girl from Godric's Hollow, and their relationship led to her becoming pregnant with his child, which is Dumbledore's nephew. The child turned out to be Credence, the Obscurial we have seen in The Fantastic Beasts. And sadly, the girl was sent away, and Aberforth wouldn't see his son again for over 30 years.
Come home.
Dumbledore had heard rumors about a child resulting from his brother's relationship, but he never knew for certain. The distance and estrangement between the two prevented Aberforth from confiding in Dumbledore or seeking Dumbledore's help with the situation. In The Secrets of Dumbledore, Dumbledore recalled, "The summer Gellert and I fell in love. My brother fell in love as well with a girl from Hollow. She was sent away. There were rumors about a child. He's a Dumbledore. If I had been a better friend to Aberforth, if I had been a better brother, he might have confided in me. Perhaps things would have been different. This boy could have been part of our lives, part of our family." Towards the end of Grindelwald's stay in Godric's Hollow, Dumbledore and Grindelwald were in complete agreement. With their blood pack in hand, they plan to start a global wizarding war to force Muggles into subservience and become the leaders of the new world. Dumbledore planned to bring his little sister Ariana with them, but his brother Aberforth disapproved, stating that she was in no state to go. One night, Aberforth confronted them, but Grindelwald dismissed him as a foolish little boy for trying to stop them. After a heated exchange by threatening each other, Aberforth drew his wand, but was quickly overpowered by the Cruciator's curse by Grindelwald. It was then that Dumbledore realized the true extent of Grindelwald's cruelty and stepped in to defend his brother. This led to a three-way duel between Gellert Grindelwald, Albus Dumbledore and his brother, Aberforth Dumbledore. During the duel, Ariana ran downstairs but was unaware of what was happening to try to intervene. In the chaos, she was tragically killed by one of their stray spells, and no one knew for sure whose spell got her. After the tragedy, Grindelwald quickly retreated to his great-aunt's house where he had her create a portkey to return him home, while Dumbledore and his brother quickly rushed towards their sister's body and cried in regret and pity. The death of Ariana profoundly affected Dumbledore for the rest of his life. We see in the Secrets of Dumbledore that Dumbledore recalled,
Gellert and I had made plans to go away together. My brother didn't approve. One night he confronted us. Voices were raised, threats made. Aberforth drew his wand, which was foolish. I drew my wand, which was even more foolish. Gellert just laughed. No one heard Ariana coming down the stairs. Can't say for certain it was my spell. Doesn't really matter. 1 minute she was there, and the next she was gone.
Soon after, they held a funeral for Ariana, during which Aberforth broke his brother's nose out of pure anger and sadness at what had happened. This tragedy deepened the rift between Dumbledore and his brother, which distanced them further for the rest of Dumbledore's life. Naturally, Dumbledore felt guilty for his sister's death. We saw in the Deathly Hallows that when Harry met Dumbledore's brother Aberforth and told him about the Horcrux mission Dumbledore had entrusted to him, Aberforth actually berated Harry for following his brother and questioned if Harry really knew what Dumbledore was like as a person.
So, I'll ask you again. There must be a reason.
I'm not interested in what happened between you and your brother. I don't care that you've given up. I trusted the man I knew.
But to Aberforth's surprise, Harry then revealed how Dumbledore drank the drink of despair and showed deep regret by screaming, "Kill me," while possibly reliving the three-way duel, just showing how much Dumbledore still suffered from remorse for his past actions.
It will stop. It will stop. But only if you keep drinking.
Don't make me stupid.
It was at this moment that Aberforth slowly forgave his late brother and offered help to Harry, Hermione and Ron by showing them the way to Hogwarts to search for the remaining Horcruxes. Later, he also fought in the Battle of Hogwarts. We can see that the rift between Dumbledore and his brother, which was mainly caused by the death of their sister, remained a significant barrier between them even until Dumbledore was gone. But this is one of the reasons why I like Harry Potter stories so much, because even the greatest man like Dumbledore cannot easily avoid regrets, just like us. Before Dumbledore became the headmasters of Hogwarts, he held several positions, including the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, Transfiguration professor, and even a special messenger delivering Hogwarts acceptance letters to young witches and wizards, including Tom Riddle. It was actually at this time that Dumbledore met Tom Riddle for the first time at the orphanage.
School of Magic.
Coming back to Hogwarts as a teacher, Dumbledore was burdened by the knowledge of Grindelwald's growing power and was eager to rectify his past mistakes, so he naturally gravitated towards the Defense Against the Dark Arts position to prepare for the dangers he knew were coming. Soon after, Grindelwald and his followers rose to power and launched several devastating attacks. Rumors circulated that Grindelwald procured a wand of immense power, which Dumbledore knew that it meant he had successfully obtained the Elder Wand, one of the Deathly Hallows. Dumbledore also realized that Grindelwald intended to have him killed, a clear sign showing that Grindelwald feared Dumbledore as the only wizard who was capable of ending his reign of power. One night, Dumbledore visited the Room of Requirement where the Mirror of Erised showing one's deepest desires was kept. At first, he saw an old cherished memory of himself and Grindelwald at the peak of their friendship when they sealed their bond with the blood pact in the barn. Dumbledore longed for this reunion, but at the same time was very afraid of it because Dumbledore knew that he was the only person who could stop Grindelwald, and traveling back to this moment could also mean that facing the truth of who his sister's killer really was. Dumbledore eventually defeated Grindelwald after breaking the blood pact in the legendary duel that was considered one of the greatest that was ever fought, and restored peace to the world. Due to this feat, the Ministry of Magic repeatedly offered Dumbledore the position of Minister for Magic, which he declined each time. This is because Dumbledore remembered how his pursuit of power had been a weakness of his in the past. He admitted to Harry when Harry was in the state of between life and death that
I had proven as a very young man that power was my weakness and temptation. I was safer at Hogwarts. I think I was a good teacher. You were the best.
Following the defeat of Grindelwald, Dumbledore also kept the Elder Wand for himself, which became a crucial point later in the Harry Potter story. Dumbledore never forgave himself for the part he played in his sister's death and always felt tremendous guilt and remorse over it. The sentiment was so strong that Rowling admitted in an interview that if a boggart were to appear in front of Dumbledore, it would take the form of Ariana's corpse. Decades later, upon successfully tracking down Marvolo Gaunt's ring, one of the Horcruxes, Dumbledore realized that the stone in the ring was in fact the Resurrection Stone, the Deathly Hallow. At that moment, Dumbledore's overwhelming desire to see his family again completely overrode his common sense for just a moment, so he placed the ring on his finger, completely forgetting that the ring had been cursed by Voldemort, so was not safe. Seeing the mistake he made, Dumbledore once again realized how he was unfit to use the stone.
Maybe a year.
We see in the conversation Dumbledore had with Harry when Harry was in Limbo, he said,
I was such a fool, Harry. After all those years, I had learned nothing. I was unworthy to unite the Deathly Hallows. I had proved it time and time again, and here was the final proof.
The Resurrection Stone was later sealed in the first golden snitch Harry caught after Dumbledore destroyed the ring and made arrangements for Harry to inherit it in his will. This is why we saw towards the end of the Deathly Hallows that the snitch showed "I open at the close" before the Resurrection Stone appeared. This is a charm placed upon by Dumbledore, and this arrangement allowed Harry to be joined by his deceased loved ones before he had enough courage to face his own death.
We never left.
Grindelwald appeared in the Deathly Hallows when Voldemort came to him for the Elder Wand. According to the book, Grindelwald actually refused to give any information about its whereabouts, despite being imprisoned, wandless, and face-to-face with the only dark wizard ever considered greater and more powerful than himself. Grindelwald said the following during the interrogation.
Kill me then, Voldemort. I welcome death, but my death will not bring you what you seek. That wand will never ever be yours.
In the end, Voldemort murdered Grindelwald in the rage without gaining any information. It was Voldemort himself who deduced that Dumbledore, who had defeated Grindelwald, had won the Elder Wand and headed off to his grave. So we can see that in the last moments of Grindelwald, he actually defended Dumbledore, his former lover. This possibly indicates that Grindelwald still respected and cared for his former lover despite all that had happened. Grindelwald's lies perhaps was a final act of repentance for his sins. Dumbledore's legacy was profoundly significant, encompassing decades marked by suffering, torture, tragedy, success, love, prosperity, and everything in between. He was destined for greatness through his dreams and aspirations during his youth. Although in his youth, he desired to have power over the non-magical world, but unlike his companion, he never pursued it in a malevolent manner. And it was during these early years of his life that Dumbledore learned that seeking power and striving to be the best could lead to disastrous outcomes. During his conversation with Harry when Harry was in Limbo, Dumbledore confessed that he truly loved each and every one of his family, but was blinded by his ambition and obsession. Initially, he had intended to use the Resurrection Stones to bring back his parents, hoping to lift the heavy family burden he carried. However, after his sister died tragically, he only wanted to use the stone to bring them back to apologize and nothing else. But this desire ultimately led to his own demise, so he placed a cursed ring on his fingers which would slowly kill him. We have witnessed so many remarkable traits in Dumbledore, such as empathy, forgiveness, bravery, modesty, introspectiveness, and faith. But we also have seen flaws in him that resonate with ourselves and others. Learning the character development of Dumbledore allowed me to reflect on myself and on life. Let us remember that life would perhaps be dull if we were all flawless by default. I believe weaknesses are just as much as part of us as strengths. The key here is perhaps to recognize our weaknesses rather than force ourselves into the illusion of perfection, because we're all perfect in our imperfect way.
Power. You simply ask, is a thing right?